Let's also tell you that the Honourable Jacqueline Ingutiah is a commissioner of the Judicial Service Commission, as well as the chair of the Committee on the Administration of Justice. And she is our guest this hour, this Justice Thursday. Honourable Ingutiah, good morning.
Morning to you.
After having introduced yourself as being from Kisumu, we understand some things. We get it.
We land.
Yes. They've also said that you and I look alike.
Yeah.
They have said it in circles. They've mentioned it somewhere.
Yeah.
We shall revisit.
Genealogy. You have to find out.
We must find
ancestors.
out who played where when.
Yes.
Karibu sana.
Thank you for having me.
The Situation Room. You are in the hot seat this morning,
yes.
And we will be talking about judicial accountability this morning. So thank you for being here. Let's welcome you before we tune up the heat just a little bit, because a lot of these conversations are in the public domain right now. So let's welcome you.
Thank you.
CT has proverbs. Every week, CT goes to a different African country. This week, he's in Angola. The proverb for today I find very interesting for several reasons, which we could discuss as sisters later. However, let's hear what you think about it and how you would interpret that. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
If the pocket is empty, the judge is deaf.
If the pocket is empty,
the judge is deaf.
The judge is deaf. Okay. My understanding of that proverb is that there is a perception that if you have no money, then you will not get justice. And I'm looking at it also with what us lawyers are trained, that justice is blind. So regardless of whether you have the money, regardless of your social standing, you must get justice. So with the context within which we are operating now and the discussions that are on social media and around the country, is that justice is for sale.
Yes.
And that could be a perception. Is a perception, not could be, is a perception. Yes. Yes. So that would be my understanding of that proverb. But at the same time, it could also mean that the judge does not even know what is in your pocket. So,
and is ready to just do his or her job.
Yes, ready to do their job.
Well, let's see how we can interrogate this.
But the issue is deaf and
dumb.
Deaf and dumb, yeah.
But even more interest when you consider proverbs tend to be traditional, and in being traditional, these are sayings that have existed in communities for a while.
Yeah.
So at different times in our evolution, the word judge, as we interpret it now, was not necessarily what it was interpreted then. Yes, and even now, if you look at those who have a jurisdiction to determine things, it doesn't necessarily have to be a judicial officer. In the sense of the word. No.
True.
Yes.
Indeed.
And in the ancient times, did we have pockets? Wealth was visual. So you'd see cows, land.
It's a bit difficult to have pockets when you're partially naked. So.
True.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
So, Honourable Ingutiah,
yes.
Judicial accountability, we can start with that and look at broad definitions as we then dive into what has been front and center, and I think still continues to be, even as late as yesterday, with certain pronouncements that we've seen in terms of what judicial officers may or may not be doing when it comes to the administration of justice. Judicial accountability, what is that?
Okay, judges, judicial officers, judicial staff, and the judiciary as an institution, they are all expected to operate in a particular manner within the constitution and the law. So they have to be accountable. Any decision they make, any pronouncement they make must be within certain boundaries of the law, and they must be in a position to explain why they reached a particular decision. Could it be at the registry level, that is for the judicial staff, or the judge at the level of making decisions? Yes, that is the accountability. So why did you arrive to this at that particular decision, or why not?
Right.
Yes.
So it is expected from these officers across the spectrum that you behave or you comport yourself in a particular way.
True.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, there seems to be a lot of perception, if we just dive right into it, that the converse could be taking place amongst judicial officers, again, across the spectrum. if this is a perception, where in your mind does all of this come from?
I think the reality is that there are challenges within the judiciary system, and a bigger chunk of it is issues around communication. What is a judge expected or not expected to do? What is the role of the judicial officer? What is the role of a judicial staff? And in the event they don't meet what is expected of them, how would you then complain? And there are 4 levels of accountability that I would could kindly allow me to speak to that. So there is the internal judicial accountability. Judges, magistrates are allowed to make mistakes.
Okay.
Yes, provided you do that within the law. And when you make mistakes, there are those appellate provisions. So if a judicial officer makes a mistake, you can move to another court, a superior court, the court, High Court, Court of Appeal, up to the Supreme Court. So that is when you are able to then address errors made by judicial officers or judges. But at the same time, we have the administrative accountability. The Chief Justice is the head of the judiciary.
Yes.
We have the office of the Chief Registrar of the Judiciary, the administrative bit. So there are certain issues that can be handled. We have policies that must be implemented. So judiciary in itself has a place to must promote accountability. The other bit is the public, and we all say when the public reach out to us and demand for accountability, it's a good thing because again it is said judiciary is the last hope for Kenyans. So members of the public, court users, are able to then raise concerns. If you are not, if you are dissatisfied with the court decision, you move to the other court. And if again you're dissatisfied with how the conduct of a judge, magistrate, or judicial officer is, you either go to the Chief Justice or come to the Judicial Service Commission. And you can also just have public discussions as to the ills that are happening within the judiciary. The third bit is other arms of government, that's executive and parliament. The judiciary on an annual basis is expected to submit reports, that is the state of the judiciary and administration of justice report. Again, it's an accountability tool. We get money from the public coffers. It's only fair that we are also held accountable as to what we have done with the monies that we have been given. And lastly, it's the Judicial Service Commission, where I was elected by the Law Society of Kenya to represent them. Yes. And that is the agency, the commission, responsible for ensuring that the judiciary is accountable and independent. And what have we done to ensure there is accountability and independence? Number one, in terms of coming up with policies and systems, we have the Judicial Service Code of Conduct. What a judge is expected to do, what a judicial officer is expected to do, what a judicial staff is expected to do. We receive complaints against judges. Complaints against judicial officers and staff have been delegated by the Judicial Service to the Chief Justice. But the disciplinary process happens at the Judicial Service Commission. We engage other arms of government because for you to promote judicial independence, one of the biggest problem that we are facing as a country is the issue of funding. So again, we engage other government agencies, we engage stakeholders, we listen to them as to what their concerns are when it comes to judicial accountability. So we have put in place systems, processes. We continue to engage stakeholders so that we are more open, and members of the public and other stakeholders are in a position of raising their concerns. Yes.
You mentioned mistakes that judicial officers could make. What would be a mistake that a judicial officer could make? Give us a few examples of what a mistake would be.
Interpretation of the law, that is a mistake because you see there is the element of decisional independence. How you look at an issue is different from how another judge or a judicial officer would look at it. So if there is a mistake in an interpretation of the law, then either yourself, through revision, when a party moves your court, through review, you can amend the mistake, or a party can move to a superior court. So if it's from a tribunal or the magistrate's court, they can go to the High Court. If it's at the High Court, Court of Appeal up to the Supreme Court. Yes.
Okay.
But those mistakes should not be blatant mistakes. Yeah.
Okay.
So provided you do that in good faith, yes.
Okay.
You know, I'm curious. This word mistakes keeps popping up. What would be a blatant mistake, for instance?
Interpretation.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, everyone who is in the system, whether it is a magistrate, senior magistrate, whether it's a judge of the appellate court, they are lawyers.
Yes.
This one I'm taking to the realm of supposition. What would bring about a situation where someone would misinterpret a decision or misinterpret
the law?
Yes, how? Because we've accepted that it's a mistake a human being can make.
Yes.
So, what are some of the things that would influence a person in the direction of making a mistake?
Okay, there is the issue of incompetence, could be an incompetence issue. It could also be some level of interference behind the scenes. So it could be, this is my body, let me skew this decision to this level. But you see, currently as a country, we are not allowed to challenge that decision of a judge as a judicial service commission. That is not our mandate. We are not an appellate court. Neither is Parliament, neither the members of the public. We have the judicial system, as I said, internal processes. If you're dissatisfied, you move. I know in other jurisdictions like Rwanda, and it's a conversation that we say we need to consider, where they monitor the number of cases that have been upset by a superior court. So if there is a trend, how come your decisions are always upset by a superior court? Is it an incompetence issue? And what should be done about that? Remember, among the grounds for removal of a judge is incompetence. So we are yet to get there. But it's a conversation we need to have. Kenyans are saying there are some decisions that are not based on the law and facts. Is it true? There are those decisions, even me as a lawyer, I will read and ask myself questions. But where is the evidence? I don't have evidence of impropriety. And again, Kenyans are saying the evidence is in the decision. But are we allowed to challenge that decision outside the set processes? And do we want to get there? Because not all judges, not all magistrates engage in acts of impropriety.
Okay.
Yes.
Let me ask. I'm looking at a scenario where, let's take a judge. It's in the criminal division. And they have issued judgments over time on issues that perhaps have some similarity. And then one of those cases, not many, goes to an appellate court and they overturn it. Would that be adequate cause for one to say, we need to relook at the decision this particular judge has made over such matters in the past?
And that's what I'm saying, we need to look at the trend. Because you see, as I say, judges and magistrates are allowed to make mistakes. But it must be made in good faith.
Right.
Yes.
Then we talked of incompetence, but I want to bring in a different aspect here.
Yeah.
What if the incompetence is as a result of mental health? Judges, magistrates, at whatever level, are human beings. What if the person is unwell? Let's say, for instance, you have an onset of dementia. Yes, you can be sick, it is not known. Some of these things are slow. It's not as though they hit you one day and suddenly you realize, no, it's slow. And perhaps over the period when it was building up, you have made decisions which were not influenced by some misdeed. It's just that you are incapacitated and you probably did not know.
You know, among the qualities of a judge or a judicial officer is that you must be of sound mind. And I know there is a decision of the Supreme Court that affirms that it's a quality. So we are yet to establish what happens to decisions that were handled when a person was of unsound mind, especially when there was a pronouncement. So we are yet to find ourselves in a situation where a judge or a judicial officer who has been adjudged of unsound mind handling cases. So that is yet to come to our attention. But I know there is a case which we recommended to the president to have a judge removed from office based on that.
See why I bring it up?
Yes.
I look at the caseloads that people in that system have, okay? And we've asked questions as to whether there is a process by which they get debriefed, they get mental reprieve, so you can sort of like let off a little steam and remove the load. Mm-hmm. The load alone can bring about this incapacity without you necessarily running around naked, okay?
Yes.
Now, the reason why it becomes important in my mind is because decisions of that nature, apart from just forming a precedent, it has very far-reaching consequences. So the question I'm actually asking is, we've heard of this process where people in the system have an opportunity to actually receive social, psychosocial counsel.
Support. Yes.
Support.
Yes.
Does it exist? And if it exists, how effective is it?
Yes, it does exist. And the Judiciary has a mental health unit. Among the benefits judges, judicial officers, and magistrates receive is a medical cover and a component of mental health. There is also the aspect of work-life balance, which doesn't cover across all judges. There are some who have huge backlog. There are those who have fewer. So things such as Mahakama Popote, where you find in Nairobi, the workload is huge. Mm. So, and a station like Turkana, the station is low. So you offload some of these cases to the magistrate or judge in Turkana to try and just balance. We also have colloquias where judges just sit and discuss and debrief. We also have within the High Court recess, and in December, judges will be going out on recess so that they're able to write judgments. It's supposed to be a time to relax, but they still carry their judgments. Mm. It's not unique when you go for a conference and find judges carrying their files with them. They're supposed to be relaxing, but they're still carrying their files. So it's an issue, yes, but the problem again within the judiciary is the number. The demand is high, the supply is low. We have been asking for appropriation of sufficient funds so that we recruit more judges, magistrates, and judicial staff, and we continue to do that. So yes, there's an issue there, but we're trying. We've not taken a back seat on that. Mm. Yeah. So there are mental health talks that the judiciary undertakes with their staff. Once in a while, if funds are available, there are sports days, again, which we've not had for quite some time because of reduced budgetary allocation. We have the Kenya Judiciary Academy that also offers some training that allows people to leave their station to just go and receive training on new and emerging issues around the law. And among the things they are then taught during that session is mental health. Yes.
Does the judiciary actually employ psychosocial experts?
Yes, we have one within the HR department. Mm. Yes.
Okay, let's take a break.
One, yes.
Okay. Sorry, no. One, you said.
Yes.
All right.
Yes, a unit. Let me call it a unit within the HR directorate.
Okay.
And thanks for asking that question. Yeah.
I think there are a couple of elephants in this room, and one of the big ones is corruption amongst the judiciary. And there have been some lawyers within their rights who in the most recent past have come out guns blazing and said, if this is not handled, the judiciary is eating itself from within. And so just to come and look at some of those issues and say, okay, so where are we in terms of judicial accountability? If we have these proclamations that are being made, what's actually being done about that? The Honourable Jacqueline Ingutiah is our guest this hour on Justice Thursday, and we're looking at judicial accountability and asking ourselves the questions, where are we in all of this, and what are the stakes in maintaining that accountability in society today? Oftentimes we speak into the room, Honourable Ingutiah, and we talk about how Kenya is highly litigious, right? But at the same time, the society then will not step back in terms of speaking out over things that they see, perceive, hear. For the longest time, we put judges, judicial officers at whatever area on a pedestal, and we could never have a conversation I mean, you would never have a conversation with the judicial officer in this manner. It's what the judge or what the judicial officer says, that is final, that's the law, there's no debate. We've seen that changing. So much so now that things can be called out. And one of the big ticket items is corruption in the judiciary. That judges have been bought or perceived to have been bought, or the allegations have been made. And so it's a big elephant in the room. Most recently, we've heard senior lawyers in society, former chairs of LSK speaking out over certain things that can't be ignored. What's the situation with this as pertains to judicial accountability when we talk about corruption within the judiciary?
Okay, as a country, we all understand the importance of the judiciary, and we expect members of the public to raise concerns if they feel their concerns are not being addressed. Do we have corruption in the judiciary? Of course, there are incidences of corruption. And it's not just at the judgment-making stage. There are incidences where we have had at the registry level, paying, retrieving a file, getting a date, losing a file. At times your case is not mapped, not getting a date, or you're ready for your matter, and the judge or the judicial officer is not sitting. So it's the perception, and there are again incidences of corruption within the whole judiciary, from the administration to the actual decision making. And for us as a Judicial Service Commission, we say when Kenyans see issues, don't keep quiet, raise them. But the other issue, again, we are concerned about is why aren't these cases being reported? Because the Judicial Service Commission, as I mentioned earlier, receives and processes complaints against judges. And since inception, we have received a total of 935 cases. And out of the 935 cases, we have finalized 862. So we currently have a backlog of 73 only. And out of the 73, one is awaiting the decision of the full commission, because we hear petitions in panels. We have 5 hearings that are ongoing. 20, we have asked the judges to respond to the allegations. And we have received court orders in 3 cases stopping us from proceeding with the disciplinary hearings.
For clarity,
yes,
we are saying that there are 900. There have been since the inception
of the Judicial Service Commission
935 cases that have been brought against judicial officers,
judges specifically to the Judicial Service Commission.
Okay,
because against judicial officers, that's the magistrates and tribunal members, and judicial staff are handled at the Chief Justice's table, because the Judicial Service Commission is a part-time commission.
Right.
So we can't be sitting and hearing cases. So we delegated for judicial officers and judicial staff to the Chief Justice, but the disciplinary hearing, is had by the Judicial Service Commission.
When was the JSC put in place?
2011.
Okay.
Yes.
So
just allow me to also give you further statistics. So out of the concluded cases, 772 were dismissed by the commission, and that's about 82.5% were dismissed by the commission because they were touching on merit. People came to the Judicial Service Commission to complain about how a decision was made. I am not happy with how this decision was made.
Okay.
And that's what I was telling you earlier. The decisional independence is not handled at the Judicial Service Commission level. Within the institution, there are those appellate routes within which someone can as well go and ask for a review from the same court or appeal. Is this
information known? Because if you're saying that 772 of these cases were dismissed on grounds of merit, they were still brought to the JSC.
Yes.
So are you saying that these 772 cases should have been taken elsewhere to be dealt with?
within the judicial processes.
Why accept them if you know very well that they should not be brought to the JSC? Why not say at this point we can't take this case if it's a merit issue, send it to where it should go?
No, we have to process.
Okay.
We have a duty to process and communicate to the parties the available avenues within which they can seek redress.
Okay.
And yes, we have identified this as a gap, and we are doing a lot of public sensitization as a Judicial Service Commission.
Yeah.
And at times we are now seeing how the wording of the petition appear. So in as much as it may be a decisional independence issue, people are trying to bring out the aspects of any other influence that may have caused a judge or a judicial officer to have ruled the other way. So there are those that come as incompetence and there are those that come as influence. But still, we are telling Kenyans we do not have the powers to review or sit on appeal of cases made by judges or judicial officers. So, and again, out of the cases that we received, 12 were submitted to the president to have the judges removed, because it's not, again, the JSC that removes judges. We recommend to the president for the president to form a tribunal. And out of the 12, 7 were removed and 1 was reinstated back by the Supreme Court. Because if you are aggrieved by a decision of the tribunal, then you can move to the Supreme Court for redress. Yes, so there are available systems within the Judicial Service Commission that helps Kenyans to raise their concerns.
How many judges do we have in the country?
In total, we'll talk about 400 from the Supreme Court to Court of Appeal and High Court and Court of Equal Status. I would give an average of around 300. 300 or just slightly less.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, you talk about the fact that, yes, there is corruption amongst the judiciary. And again, one of the issues that continues to be in the public in terms of how then can you assure or ensure access to justice if the corruption issue is there? Because the perception then becomes, I mean, you're rife with perception and you say, okay, in terms of a judgment or in terms of judgments that may have been made previously, how can you be sure that it has been sanitized or that it is actually a sanitized process from beginning to end? Does that fall under the ambit of the JSC to ensure that this actually, we're looking at justice having been served and not denied?
Yeah, as I said earlier, we have the Code of Conduct. And the Code of Conduct are founded on the Bangalore principles of what judges and judicial officers are expected to do. And the continuous conversations we are having with them. So in as much as the Judicial Service Commission cannot review your decisions, you have a duty to ensure that you protect the independence of the judiciary. So your decision must be free from any form of interference, so that when we are protecting your decision on independence, even you, while you're writing your decision, make sure there is no any form of interference, because in doing so, you are affecting the ecosystem of judiciary when it comes to independence. So there has to be that peer review, there has to be that continuous talk, and there has to be continuous engagement. How do we avoid the issue of judges being influenced or magistrate being influenced, not just because of money or because usually there is the aspect of finances, the aspect of conflict of interest, friendship and stuff. So there has to be that personal reflection. And among the judges and judicial officers, we have the fantastic group of judges, and they are doing their job. So those who are not doing their job, I would put it at a very small percentage, but we don't want them at all in the judiciary. So they took an oath of office, they swore to defend the Constitution and the rule of law. Let them just do the right thing. And the JSC will continuously engage with partners to ensure that we speak about these things up to a point where we do the right thing always.
Honorable Ingutiah, recently the Chief Justice Martha Koome addressed the matter of corruption and based off complaints that had been raised by lawyers Ahmed Nasir Abdullahi and PLO Lumumba. and had said that forwarded some matters for investigations to the DCI to assist the JSC with investigations on the same. Meanwhile, we also see that some of these complaints are just made on the social media and not directed to the JSC, which is a lapse that does exist. So in terms of cases that have been processed where we are and where we are going in terms of just making sure that Kenyans know where to go. Kenyans are easily access JSC because there is a perception that the JSC is unapproachable. How do we break this myth to make it easier for Kenyans to understand that they can get to you?
Yeah. Yes, there is the perception that JSC is the judiciary, and that's not factual, because we are an independent commission to check the judiciary. So in as much as we have quite a sizable number of members from the judiciary, but we all sit together to defend the independence and ensure the judiciary is accountable. So we, as a JSC, we notice there is a gap in people trying to understand the difference between the judiciary and JSC. And we've done a lot of public awareness forums. We've done a lot of stakeholder engagement. Currently, we have developed draft regulations on complaint processing, and we are doing stakeholder engagement, and I would urge Kenyans across the country to go to our website and review the document. A gap we noticed was we did not have a system that would help Kenyans understand what type of complaint you can lodge against the judiciary. That's why you're seeing so many cases of decisional independence. What are the timelines? We didn't have a document that specifies that. We have also had concerns of members of the public or members of the bar wanting to lodge complaints anonymously. We didn't have a proper. It's there, but we didn't have it well structured. So this document provides for all this. And once we have this approved, I know we'll have better complaints processing and awareness creation with regards to the role of the Judicial Service Commission. And then the other thing you also have to be aware, the issue of funding. The Judicial Service Commission suffered among all the constitutional commissions and independent offices. We suffered hugest budget cuts, 27%. That was the highest.
Yeah. The highest cuts
among the independent commissions.
Yes.
So what does that tell you or tell us as a country? Where have we placed the issue around independence and accountability of the judiciary? We have a staff establishment of 162 people. We are running with 39. The Directorate of Complaints and Investigations only has 4 staff. We established that a few years ago. Those are the steps we have done. We have established that department. We have established the Department of legal department. We've established communications department. This we did in the past 2 years, but we have very few personnel in those units. So when you speak about funding and how that funding affects independence of the judiciary, that should tell a story, because the second agency, the Constitutional Commission that received a double-digit funding was the National Police Service Commission at 11%. Others received 3%. Yes, so that should tell us a story. Yes, if you starve the Judicial Service Commission of funding, then how is it expected to operate? If you starve the judiciary, because in ensuring there is financial independence, you're also promoting judicial independence. So if you continuously reduce funding for the judiciary, then it's a conversation as a country you must have.
That conversation lies right at the doorstep of Parliament.
Yes.
In terms of making the law, but then also ensuring budgetary allocations for certain offices. And if we talk about the independence of the judiciary, we talk about the independence of the legislation, the independence of the executive, which should work hand in hand, but independently of one another. But one has to make the decision in terms of how much money essentially you're going to be able to spend to do your job. Are we looking at an independent process then, really, if you depend on another for the money that you need to work?
That's the big question, because the person who's holding the purse makes the decision.
Somebody has to hold the purse But how, for instance, we have the Teacher Service Commission. It's independent, so we're told. The police got theirs the other day, didn't they?
Commission. National Police Service Commission. Yes.
Exactly. Now, the understanding is that no one other than that commission has the wherewithal to be able to manage the affairs of that particular institution of which their commissions are. Now, when you look at the complaints that one constantly reads and comes across with regards to the police service or the judiciary, it's not difficult to draw a very straight line between that and the funding of the lack of funding therein. And for a very simple reason, how do you ensure that you incapacitate someone? You don't give them the capacity. It's not complicated. So they will not do what they're supposed to do. So it's easy to say they're not doing this, which is true, they're not. But the thing is, they can't. And for them to do it, so it raises the question, we have a parliament. There's something called a truth decay, okay? It's nestled firmly in parliament, where you seem to get the impression that the decision-making process always seems to be skewed towards something that doesn't benefit the citizenry. Yes. It's a budget-making parliament, and we would assume that they would know, because also just about the most educated parliament we ever had. But everything having been said, that's where there's no correlation. The education, the powers they have, and the service that they provide for those people who gave them the job. So the question is, how do we get rid of this parliament?
Oh my goodness, okay.
I will not respond to the question.
You're speaking to the independent cousin of...
This doesn't fall under the jurisdiction, because we know what the problem is. So if this problem has persisted...
I think the big question would be, how then would all these arms of government work together for the benefit of the citizenry is where the big question lies. Because if you deny the judiciary the funds that they need to do their affairs, then aren't we denying the citizenry the services that they deserve?
Consider for a single second what would happen if we didn't have a parliament. Would we function?
We will not function because
we already have laws. Why wouldn't we function?
We need parliament to appropriate the budget and stuff. So it's just the priorities of the country.
You've actually understood exactly what I'm getting
at. And I would give an example. Makadara, low courts, serves 46 police stations, not police posts. So you can imagine how that court looks like on a Monday morning.
I know what it looks like because I've been there on a Monday morning.
In Milimani, a judicial officer is expected to handle around 5,400 cases per year. We have the small claims adjudicators, because small claims cases below 1 million go before those courts, and they're expected to hear and determine the cases in 1 month, in 60 days. People have been sharing the cost lists of these adjudicators. 200 cases on a cost list per day. So for me, it's the priority. So this is where Kenyans must speak for the judiciary, because at times when the JSC and the judiciary speaks, it's like a monotonous voice, the frog.
But you keep hearing croak in the distance.
Croak forever. But if Kenyans were to just say we need a functional judiciary, with a little budget we've done a lot of things. The digitization, for example, we've done a good job when it comes to, we are trying to have the transcription services where it's speech to text, homegrown solutions to local problems. The ICT department within the judiciary has come up with a transcription service that is able to recognize all the dialects, even the dialect from the people of Bunyore, the people of Kano where I'm cooking. It's able to pick the dialects.
Yes.
But we were not able to roll it out this financial year because of the budget cuts. So you can imagine what this particular innovation was supposed to aid Kenyans. A judge speaks, parties speak, you just get transcribed information. You don't have to wait for typed proceedings. You don't have to wait for all those things. Yes. So those are the discussions, again, we need to have as a country. Where have we placed the judiciary?
Exactly.
Yes.
Or even where is there an understanding of the roles that the judiciary is supposed to perform for you then to understand then where you can place those priorities.
We had a magistrate, sadly she passed away in Makadara.
Yes.
And you could imagine if, may her soul rest in peace, if judges and judicial officers would just say, no, we are done. You can imagine the chaos in the country.
Right.
Yeah, police officers would not have to take remandees to court. It would be chaotic. People with orders they needed to have them extracted would not have that opportunity. So I think we need as a country to prioritize a judiciary as a good thing for the country.
Indeed.
Yes.
So I want to, as we're coming round to the end of this conversation, the complaints that are being made in public, social media, of course, 5 years ago, now you have a court of public opinion. Social media is where a lot of these things are adjudicated by senior professionals within this profession. But we're still saying bring these complaints to the JSC. But there's a reason why they don't. There's a reason why they try these cases in the court of public opinion. There's a reason why it's put out on social media. Could they know something that we don't know? And why would you insist that bring them to the JSC, but they insist on putting them in the public eye over and over and over again? Do they feel as though the JSC would protect these officers as opposed to prosecute?
I believe we are a country of rule of law. And we have systems within which we can engage and lodge the complaints. Some of the complaints that are lodged or we get to receive through social media or the mainstream media, we have what is called suo moto, where the Judicial Service Commission, on its own motion, you don't have to bring a petition directly. When we see an injustice or when we see a particular issue, we can send investigators and investigate the case on our own motion. But the challenge in prosecuting these cases in forums that are outside the established spaces is where is the place of fairness for the judge or the judicial officer. The code of conduct speaks of how a judge and judicial officer should conduct themselves in social media. So there is no way you'll find a judge or a judicial officer going to social media and defending themselves. And now again, what happens to this judge? You go to court, somebody has said so many things about you on social media. There is that perception. People will come to you knowing you're not going to be a fair judge. Yeah. So we also have to respect the rule of law.
Indeed.
And use the available spaces or avenues
that we have
to lodge complaints.
Indeed.
And as I said earlier, we have taken note of the fact that maybe we've not been communicating with the members of the public, but for lawyers, I know we are aware of the available spaces, and I'd urge Kenyans, including members of my great Law Society of Kenya, to use the available spaces. And we had a very productive meeting with them yesterday, and we agreed on the way forward, including if members are not comfortable with us receiving complaints, the Law Society can receive and present it to the Judicial Service Commission.
Indeed.
Yeah, so
there are ways.
There are ways.
Thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. Judicial accountability is not something that we can just discuss once. We must continue talking about. The Honourable Jacqueline Ingutiah is a Commissioner of the JSC and Chair of the Committee of Administration of Justice. Thank you for being our guest on Justice Thursday this morning. Good morning.
This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.